Welcome to Business Beyond Borders, the go-to podcast for CPA firms seeking transformative insights. I'm your host, Laurence Whittam, and with each episode we'll uncover key insights, best practices, and invaluable resources tailored for CPAs. From trending strategies to diving deep into outsourcing and offshoring, our experts will help in all areas of your business. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Business Beyond Borders. So I'm here today with Terry Ziemniak from CISO. He's a partner there and in their cybersecurity space. So he's a fractional CISO for different businesses. And today's episode is really to give firms a bit of an understanding of things that you can be doing yourself, number one, internally to make sure that you are looking at your firm to be secured, but also think of it from an advisory perspective. Obviously, a firm and a CPA owner is typically one of the top resources that a business is going to go to say, hey, listen, this has just happened. Can you help me? Do you know somebody? Right. So this is where, and I've seen it in the big firms being in them as to those situations happen, right? And they occur. And unfortunately, it's very difficult to fully control whether they happen to you or not. Right. In a lot of cases, I've always learned that if you are targeted, something is probably going to happen. Right. Unfortunately. So, and which is why a lot of even the largest public firms and businesses in the world have been hacked in some variety over the years. Right. Now, it's just how you deal with that is very important. Right. So having the understanding for it and making sure your clients have the understanding of what to do is very important in my eyes. So Terry, appreciate you coming on to sort of explain this a little bit and would love for you to give just a quick background about yourself and maybe a quick background about CISO as well. That'd be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely, Laurence. Thank you. Thank you for having me. So my background really is kind of breaks into three phases for my career. Got out of school and I started as a cybersecurity engineer. So I was doing the cool penetration testing and the bits and bytes and building cool security solutions and whatnot. That was fun. About first decade of my career. Then I transitioned over to more of a compliance and leadership role. So, here in the U.S. about 20 years ago, people are asking about HIPAA. And when I was working at a security organization, the salespeople were looking for HIPAA experts because that's what the clients were asking for. And nobody in our group knew what HIPAA was. So I kind of raised my hand. I said, I'll go figure it out. I'll be the HIPAA guy for our security company. And that kind of transitioned me into the compliance space. So I mirrored the technical skills then with more of the business skills in the compliance space. And that second phase really is highlighted by the fact that I've got in that path about a decade of experience as what's called the Chief Information Security Officer. So taking the compliance route, I went up the executive path, and I've got about a decade of experience as VP of Cybersecurity at very large multi-billion-dollar healthcare organizations across the U.S. Then in my current phase, hopefully not the final phase, but my current phase of my career, then I'm working as a fractional cybersecurity executive. So taking the skills that I have, I can now work with small, mid-sized businesses, understand the technical components, bring to light the executive experience that I have to kind of tie those pieces together. And my message to the small companies is, hey, let's figure out what the right level of security is for you and then figure out how to get there. So it's risk management. And that's something that small, mid-sized companies that do not have a seasoned cybersecurity executive really don't kind of think about. It's the risk, the business risk behind cybersecurity. And that's where I play right now. CISO in particular. So I started as a partner there early this year. After about 5 or 6 years as an independent practitioner. Basically, we're an organization of fractional executives, fractional finance folks, fractional CTOs, technical folks as well. I'm in the cybersecurity space, and we're kind of we consider ourselves like a full service organization that can help small and mid-sized companies fill those gaps with seasoned executives.
So now, what is the size of a business, right, or a firm that even should be looking into this? Because obviously, I think the first thing in people's minds will be, okay, go to my MSP, right? Go to the person that set up my machines, right? Mm-hmm. it's very different between the cybersecurity expert and somebody that's setting up IT equipment. Sometimes they'll have people on staff that are in the cyber world, right, at the end of the day. But in a lot of cases, they're not really prepared fully for that type of thing. They're prepared for the basic stuff, but not necessarily for ransomware attacks and malware attacks and those types of aspects there, where there needs to be more like a plan in place should something like that comes up, right? So can you share like what does it look like working with that fractional CISO, right, in that sense as well? And again, what should be those things that people are listening out for with conversations with their clients or asking the clients, right, during those initial sort of kickoff meetings and stuff when they're getting an understanding for the financial side, but also just that they're aware, like, okay, what does the cyber side of it look like as well?
Yeah, it's interesting that I know your audience is on the financial side and CPAs and folks in that space. Cybersecurity, it's not unusual to have cybersecurity report up to the CFO because cybersecurity in a number of organizations is managed as part of your enterprise risk program. So it's not common necessarily, but it's not unheard of that the financial folks manage this risk. And that really is the key message is that this is a business risk and you have to manage it as a business risk. So your MSP certainly does a solid job, a competent job with basic technical protections, antivirus, maybe backups, encryption, whatever it may be. And those are well and good. But if you think about the broader point of cybersecurity exists to protect the business. There's a lot more to it than technology. Technology is necessary, but your MSP is not going to talk necessarily about contractual protections, regulatory expectations, business resiliency, business continuity planning, user education, the broader scope of how do we protect the business and make sure the business functions is much more than just a technical component. Technology is required, but it's not the key point. So where the fractional CISO or your chief information security officer, your fractional CISO will help you understand what's the right level of security required for our business. Do we need to be Fort Knox? Probably not. Do we want to be irresponsible on the other end of the spectrum? Definitely you don't want to be. There's somewhere in between you have to be. And that's where an executive is going to give you an understanding of how do we align this business function with the overall organizational goals. And that's what the executive provides. So, someone like me wouldn't be your firewall guy, wouldn't be your antivirus person. Leverage the MSP to do the work to support the cybersecurity objective to protect the business. And that's how that pieces all fit together.
And now what would, for the firms listening specifically, like specifically to the CPA profession, right? What would you say are some of those top concerns for them when it comes to the cyber aspect, like from people trying to get in, right? What are those aspects that they should be thinking about themselves, right? Not just from a client side of it, but more so from the firm specifically.
Got it. So as a CPA firm, I think the key points would be know the technology that you're using and kind of consider one off those different technologies. So if you're using whatever your accounting package is, that has to be protected. You're probably using social media, you're using email, you're using, payroll services, whatever it be. Your individual functions or review them. The smaller CPA shops that I'm familiar with typically don't have their own technology. They use all this cloud-based technology. Presumably that's the majority of what you have. So go look at your QuickBooks and say, hey, as a business using QuickBooks, how do I secure my QuickBooks, my slice of the QuickBooks security chart? You're responsible for users as a user, as an organization. You're responsible for access rights. You're responsible for configuration, but you don't do backups. You're not responsible for power. You're not responsible for physical. So in the shared security model, say, hey, I'm a user of QuickBooks. What's my responsibility? And then ask the same question of Google, of Microsoft 365, of your tools. So you don't need to become an expert in Microsoft 365. You just have to ask the question as a user, what are my responsibilities, and get them done. So that kind of guidance is out there. Again, go pick your 5 or 6 most important pieces of technology and just search. security best practice, Google Workspace. That guidance is out there. And again, you don't do backups, don't worry about it, but you got to make sure you have multi-factor enabled everywhere. You got to make sure you have a second administrator in case, primary administrator gets bonked on the head, it's not available, which are number two. So look at the best practice guidance for the technologies that you use. I think that'll probably be the great starting point.
So, and then just out of interest, what would be your, I guess, number one sort of threat, right, from that perspective for not just as like for a business in general, right? I mean, what do you see personally as like that biggest threat to a company?
Well, I think there's a couple ways to think through that. One is not doing the basics. A lot of companies get in trouble because they don't do the basics. So the patching, removing terminated users, turning on multi-factor authentication, the basics, which are relatively well understood, just aren't getting done. So making an effort once a quarter to kind of cycle through these things and make sure it gets done. So enabling what we generally call like cyber hygiene, just stuff you're supposed to do. Take time to know what needs to get done and get it done on the regular basis. So, that's not going to stop China from breaking into your organization necessarily, but it addresses 98% of what you have to deal with, just basic hygiene that's well known if you just take the time to look at it. So that would be one issue, is doing what you need to do. Number two is thinking about your organization. So again, the purpose of cyber, you don't do cyber for cyber's sake. You do cyber to protect your business. And a new phrase that's becoming very popular in the cyberspace is business resiliency. What do you do if your technology is down? What do you do if your key partners are down? How do you survive as a business if some of your stuff blows up? Because we know things blow up all the time. Maybe it's not a big explosion, maybe a small one, but hiccups happen all the time. And there could be 1,000 reasons something bad happens. But if it does, how do you survive as a business? That idea of business resiliency is really important. Think about how do you survive as an organization if something bad were to happen. I think that'd probably be a second big threat people aren't maybe paying attention to.
And now, so out of interest, what is sort of the thing going on, right? Again, I mean, it may just be because I've been in the cyber world, so I understand it. I see the news about it, but what do you see as sort of being maybe some of these top hacks coming out? Like, is it a season for malware? Is it a season for ransomware attacks? Right? What do you see just across the businesses in general, small to mid-sized businesses? Like, what is that risk that they should be looking out for right now, maybe internally, and at least be on the lookout for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think people aren't asking enough is really what should we deal with? What should we focus on? Again, do you want to focus on stopping China from hacking into your organization? May not be the best use of your resources. What really applies to you? And if you're a CPA firm or a doctor's office, or maybe you make widgets, if you, again, do a little research, you can see what the top cyber threats are for your industry. So I would always start asking those questions. For my industry, what do I need to worry about? Do you need to worry about work from home, ransomware, people hacking in your website, whatever it may be? Figure out what applies to you. Now, more broadly across the industry here in the U.S., all the industries in the U.S., some of the top issues are, frankly, the same thing they've been for years. It's account takeover, so getting into Laurence's email and doing something bad. It's the business email compromise, phishing sorts of stuff, which is someone makes a fake Laurence email, sends it to your partner saying, "Hey, I'm really, really Laurence. Please change my bank routing information." So another very common sort of attack. The ransomware and viruses, of course, are very common problems. Third-party risk is something that's popped up more and more recently. And that's the idea, again, my company doesn't exist in an island. I depend on people and people depend on me. If I depend on my payroll company and they go offline, what am I going to do? If I depend on an MSP to protect my computers and they get hacked, what am I going to do? These sorts of problems are happening on the regular basis. And I take that one more step, Laurence, is remind yourself you have a business, you're providing services to someone else. Ask yourself, that buyer, what do they think of your organization? That's maybe one of the advantages of getting ahead of cybersecurity is you can have the conversation now with prospects and clients saying, hey, we know hacks happen and bad things are happening. Let me explain to you why I'm not a cyber risk. I do X, Y, Z. Maybe I have a SOC 2 audit. I've got protections in place. I have a virtual CISO to help us work through these risks, whatever it may be. But that's where you can start getting some of the business value out of cybersecurity. If you can tell that message to your prospects and your partners in the ecosystem, it adds the value. Maybe that's a differentiator for your business.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, that's definitely something that I talk about with a lot of firms that are looking at outsourcing, for example, like using third-party BPOs that are outside of the country. Like, okay, do they have a SOC 2 audit done? Can you get a copy of that so that you can actually see and actually make sure that they've done it, right? And how often they're doing it, right? Same thing from GDPR, same thing from ISO, Cyber Essentials, right? There's a lot of different certifications out there that these third parties can go through, right? And I think it's a very big verification point that they need to look at. And I guess it's more, so what are the things, like, let's say from a CPA firm's perspective, right? Being that trusted advisor, okay, what should they be asking their clients regularly, right? Whether it's, and how often, right? Is it a monthly? Is it a quarterly discussion? Is it a yearly discussion, right? That a CPA firm should at least be asking to get an understanding for that cyber side as to, is their client at least doing X, Y, Z about it? Should that be a responsibility of the CPA firm to be knowledgeable at least enough to ask that type of question? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that makes sense. And it certainly is a value because these small, mid-sized businesses maybe have no exposure to this business risk. They may have heard of ransomware, but they don't know really how it would impact them. They've heard of third-party hacks and breaches, but they don't really understand the concept. So again, maybe that's the differentiator for the CPA firm is, hey, I'm your business advisor. I'm your trusted advisor. Let's talk about some of the things you should do to protect your business. Now, your CPAs probably are not going to talk bits and bytes and encryption and hacking, that sorts of things. But as a business executive, it would be maybe a good thing to do to talk about, what are we going to do if your technology goes offline? How do you survive as a business? If you can't make payroll for 2 weeks, what does it mean? If you can't fulfill your contractual obligations, what does it mean? So a business level conversation of cybersecurity, someone should be having the conversations, and maybe for the small businesses, CPAs is the right group. And I think what that comes down to is, for a small mid-sized business, what's your cyber story? What are you working on? What are the risks you're aware of? What are your plans for the next 12 months? What have you accomplished? So I think directing these small, mid-sized companies to strategic planning in the cyberspace, right-sized planning, but still strategic planning of, what are we worried about? Where do we need to go? What are our prospects and clients asking us? What are issues we're seeing with our peers? To make sure they manage cyber risk just like they manage financial risk and regulatory risk and competitive risk. It's one more risk that someone should be looking at. I think absolutely that'd be a great value add for the CPAs to bring that conversation to the forefront.
Cool. And what you'll find, like, is if you look into a lot of the larger CPA firms now as well, like, a lot of them have some sort of IT practice within them now, where they are providing certain levels of it. Now, some of them are just MSPs, right? In some case, right, and just helping with certain aspects. Some have gone the full blown length of having a breach response team and having a fully blown cybersecurity team, right? And again, sometimes that comes through acquisition, sometimes that comes through from building, right? But I think the key piece there is there are certain firms that do see that as it should be part of the conversation, and it's already happening, right? So I think the message there is even small firms should be at least asking the question, right? It's a different level of clients that they're working with, but asking those questions, you can partner up with other people, such as a tech CXO or somebody that you know that's in the cyber world, to at least do that fractionally, right? And make sure that your clients are in the right way, because in a lot of cases, you are also connecting to them, your client, in different capacities, right? So that third party connection is happening, right? Because you're accessing their QuickBooks, right? You're accessing their financial, like their CRM systems, their industry specific project management systems to go in and do finance work, grab things from them. So sometimes they're setting up the system that's coming into your system. So you have to understand that your network is generally like a lot more than just your small network, right? It's you have all these access points that you're opening up now, essentially going into your clients. So you're putting yourself at risk as well to some extent if they're not secure too. And correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, you're right. The big CPA players and CPA firms in theory should be pretty well configured that maybe an attack on a client may not impact the CPA. There's certainly risk in that space, but I think more along the lines as, hey, you're a trusted advisor to these small businesses. This is a big visibility gap. They're not asking the right questions. So, establish yourself as the advisor, the sticky relationship, adding value, plus maintaining your clients. This is just a value prop everyone should be talking about. Again, cyber incidents are happening everywhere these days. It's crippling businesses. Large percentage of businesses that get significant hacks go out of business. So you're there. It really benefit your client to have these sorts of conversations. You direct them somewhere to have those sorts of conversations. Absolutely.
Perfect. So Terry, can you? I appreciate you jumping on to sort of share about this. Like, where can people find you? What's the best time to find you as well in terms of like, when should they be speaking to you about this type of thing, right? And obviously the answer generally is immediately, right? Let's at least have a conversation, right? If they don't have any, but what are those sort of? Can you share maybe like a final identifying factor that they should be thinking about? If these questions have come up, maybe it's worth that conversation now, right? And how they can find you.
Yeah, I think probably the identifier, a couple of things. One is I've actually had several clients recently where I've engaged because these small clients are unable to sell to the big prospects because the big guys are saying, hey, you're a cyber risk to me. So we're seeing a clear breakdown in the sales process because the small guys can't express their cybersecurity story. So that's one. Secondly, maybe more broadly, is the conversation again as a trusted advisor. Hey, small business, what do you do in the worst case scenario? What if you get ransomware? What if your important vendors go offline? How do you survive as a business in these sorts of cases? And if they don't have some kind of reasonable story, I think that would tell you that you need to have the conversation. Business risk, because cyber is a business risk, and that's how it should be framed.
Okay, and then how can they find you? What's the best way?
Well, best way is TechCXO, TechCXO.com. Just look cybersecurity or Terry, and you'll find me there.
Awesome. Okay. No, thank you, Terry. So I hope everybody's learned a little bit from the cyber side. Again, recently just released an episode as well, like a few weeks back, where we went into specifically if you're connecting up with outsourcing firms, what are some of those areas? This is now thinking a little bit more towards what are those areas that you can now really be seen as that trusted advisor and have these conversations for your end clients, right? So Terry, really appreciate it. And I hope everybody had a great episode on Business Beyond Borders. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Business Beyond Borders. I'm Laurence Whittam, and it's been a pleasure bringing you impactful insights tailored for the modern CPA firm. Remember, the world of accounting is vast and ever evolving, and we're here to navigate it together. For more resources and episodes, don't forget to subscribe and reach out to our experts. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries of your business and explore the limitless possibilities beyond borders.